Our first inductee managed nearly half the radio stations in St. Louis over the past 4 decades, including the legendary KSHE-95. And why is this guy a Hall of Famer? Well, first and foremost, you have to be a Hall of Fame human being. I think all of the people in the NBA Hall of Fame, they fit that criteria, as well as someone who has contributed so much to their station group or to their stations or to their employees. And let's watch and learn more about John R. Beck, Jr. Let's take a look.
Hello, my name is Jamie Ullman, and I am pleased to be speaking on behalf of the great John Beck. Congratulations, John Beck, on your induction into the Missouri Broadcasters Hall of Fame. So, John, tell us a little bit about what got you here.
Well, I'm a born and raised Pittsburgher, and I grew up. I'm one of those geeks that actually listened to radio under the covers when I was a kid. And the fact is, I listened to talk radio. And I listened to rock and roll radio when it went on the air. So I was listening to that transition when the FCC forced a lot of FM and AM combinations to split their programming. And so I sold on the street for a beautiful music station, and then I sold for a soft rock radio station and moved up the ranks. CBS hired me and sent me to Detroit to sell their FM stations nationwide. And then one of my constituents that I worked for hired me and sent me to Kansas City to be the general manager of a rock station. And I became known as a rock GM from that point forward.
Nice.
And then Jeffrey Smolian, who was my dear friend and boss for 2 years, he hired me to come in and run KSHE-95 in 1984.
John, we've been together for over 40 years. It has been a relationship that's been nothing but friendship. It is hard to describe our relationship. You did a wonderful job in St. Louis for us. Beyond that, we've been dear, dear friends. I kind of look at you as a kid brother. And for anybody to look at John Beck and think he's a kid brother, it tells you how old I am.
What's one thing everyone in town seemed to know about your dad?
KSHE-95. KSHE-95.
Real rock radio.
KSHE-95.
KSHE-95.
Without question, unequivocally, it's his association with KSHE-95.
When did you realize he was kind of a big deal?
Somewhere around the second Hall of Fame induction. Yeah, when I would go out and introduce myself and people would say, Beck, as in John Beck? KSHE?
When I met NSYNC.
I've always known that was a pretty big deal.
Sure.
Today.
Do you think Don Don's a big deal?
When I would talk about him at friends' houses and their dads all knew who he was.
I tell people all the time when they say, oh, you worked with John Beck? And I said, yeah, forever it seems like. And they said, what do you learn from John Beck? The number one thing that I took away that I still use today is culture matters. Yep. It matters if people want to come to work.
You attract talent by having a place that's attractive to work.
Hi, I'm Patty McMahon. I'm here to honor John Beck, who was my boss at KSHE for 31 years. And it's an honor to be part of him being inducted into the Broadcasters Hall of Fame because he deserves it, first of all.
What's one thing he could sell absolutely anybody?
Free over-the-air radio. Free over-the-air radio. All day.
Free over-the-air radio.
Free over the radio.
Free over-the-air radio.
Free over-the-air radio.
I think you and I have both worked with people that sit in their office and go, get me this name, and come in and I'll have an audience with them. That's not John. No, John had come by every day. Hey, how's it going? He learns, your life outside of work. And that's a dirty little secret of John. The art of management of walking around.
These are management techniques. And unfortunately, not just in radio, but in a lot of, in the world, managers don't learn, to care about people. Where does that come from?
Empathy. Just, I can put myself in other people's shoes. We all have a superstar in one way or another inside of us. And it just takes somebody to be able to draw that out. We have a lot of issues in broadcasting that are affected by Washington. A lot of them. We are federally regulated, both radio and TV. So we have to work with the FCC, and we will have to work with Congress and our legislators. And there are those out there that want to take everything we do for free and charge the public for it. They're legislating all the time. The people that represent Spotify, Pandora, all those services have lobbyists, and they're talking to our legislators. 90% of the time, we just want the legislative branch of government to just leave things the way they are. Your Missouri Broadcasters Association and your National Broadcasters Association. If not for them, who will speak for you and me and us and our colleagues? Everybody in this room that works for free over-the-air radio and TV, who will speak for us?
All right, what's the fun fact about Dad?
Dad hates Silence of the Lambs. Hates it. That he met Eddie Van Halen and didn't know who he was.
That he spent some time hitchhiking.
In high school, they called him Johnny Electric. He was a cool kid.
John, this room is filled tonight with people who know you from the radio business and all the contributions you've made. I'm honored to recognize you as a mentor and a friend, and recognize the wonderful father, husband, and grandfather that you are that a lot of people don't know of. We are all so proud, and to have you here tonight to be recognized, and congratulations.
I can't believe it's been 30 years. I learned stuff from you that I still use every single day today. And whether it was working for you, with you, or together on some other projects, I'm going to leave it with culture matters. Yeah. And this is the guy I learned it from.
I'm just very proud to be your friend, proud to have worked with you all these years, and proud of the human being that you are. Congratulations, John.
We love you, Granddad!
And congratulations on your award.
Oh, thank you. Thanks, Ron.
Please welcome to the stage, John R. Beck, Jr.
Well, I don't know how I can top that video, except maybe I could talk faster and have a little more enthusiasm about it all. I had the privilege of running an iconic rock and roll radio station, and I understood it because when I was a kid, I listened to rock and roll radio when FM underground radio started. And it was the coolest thing, because I don't know if you all remember, but when you go back in time, what was on FM radio was beautiful music, and what was on AM radio was Top 40. And Top 40 is a lot of fun too, actually. And I'm not going to imitate it up here. Remember the Puker Jocks that used to be on AM radio? Well, FM radio, when underground FM radio went on the air, they were playing music that nobody else was playing. Inagata Davida by Iron Butterfly, Rush, all those bands, Styx, they weren't being played anywhere. So these underground stations went on the air. Hardly anybody had an FM receiver to listen to them. I heard a story just recently from a friend of mine. He told me that he lived in Colombia, and he would go out with his friends into a field to party, and he would walk around with a radio until he could pick up KSHE-95, and they'd pitch a tent and party there all night long. Think about the inspiration that comes from broadcast and radio. And I want to include TV in that, because when I was a kid, I read I was a geek. I didn't follow sports. Sorry, John. John, you're so good at it, man. I didn't follow sports. My dad wasn't into it, but I did follow broadcast, and I followed TV and all the changes. I was an champion of the underdog, so Alicia, I would follow ABC, because ABC was the underdog at the time, and they were forced to split up from NBC. And I would read things like that and listen to radio at night. And my granddad bought me a little radio with a little earphone. So it's been in my DNA forever. But the secret to, I think, the fact that I'm standing here before you and able to speak to all of you has more to do with how you treat people. What I said on that video is super true. I would inherit staffs all the time, and the visceral response for a lot of managers is to clean the staff out, new broom sweeps clean, start new. And I would sit down and I would find out what each of these individuals had to offer. And my talent isn't being on the air. I wasn't very good at that. I'm an okay salesperson. I can sell. But I was always better at finding talent and finding out what made them tick. And sometimes I would hire crazy people, and I'd get in all kinds of trouble. Think of it. I was 31 years old, and I took over KSHE, and we had an intercom system. Remember when you had an intercom system, and they'd say, John Beck, report to the front desk. There's somebody from the ATF here. I'm like, man, that's the alcohol, tobacco, and firearms? That's kind of a big deal. So I go up there, and there's a guy that looks like Joe Friday. And all of you under 40 probably don't know who Joe Friday is, but a lot of us in here do. Kind of a stiff, proper law enforcement officer. Speaking of, we have law enforcement here tonight with our cowboy hats on. I think that's so cool. And he sits me down and he goes, I said, yes, how can I help you? He said, well, your disc jockey this morning said he mentioned that he could shoot the president under certain circumstances. And I said, what circumstances are you talking about? He said, well, he mentioned this morning that if he could meet Jodie Foster, he might shoot the president too. I don't know if you all remember that, but going back to Hinckley, who shot Reagan, his reasoning was because he wanted to meet Jodie Foster. And I had to sit there and defend this. I got out of that trouble. We had many more circumstances like that over the years that I'm going to pass that to my wife, Lori, because she'll tell you about it when we're having cocktails later. But there's so many. And there's people I want to thank. I didn't prepare for this at all, did I? I promised Brian Lorenz. Brian Lorenz, by the way, puts this together, him and his team, and he's done it for 30 plus years. Brian Lorenz. He does an awesome job. Okay, people I want to thank. My beautiful wife, Lori Beck, who has been with me through all of this. And she has produced a whole family. In fact, during the 90s, when we got to meet Sting, Eddie Van Halen, you'll hear that story later. I got to meet a lot of these people. Lori is pregnant. So, and we'll talk about that later. A special mention that I have to bring to the table here is Ed Brown. Ed Brown was my partner coming to these meetings for probably 40 years. His wife, Debbie, is here tonight. I can see her. I see your silhouette, Debbie. Debbie and Ed have been partners. He was the chairman of the awards committee for many years. He did a fantastic job. He left us last year, I think, on June the 14th, so it's been about a year. And Debbie, I'm so glad that you're here with us tonight. And I want a hand for Eddie Brown. Also on my list of thank yous is the committee that got me up here tonight. Chad Mahoney, chairman of our organization, he does a fantastic job. The selection team, John Zimmer, John Rooney, Mike Edwards, Brian Lorenz, and Stephen Grant. Libby Nolan has been my partner for many years. I stole her from CBS and got her over to Emmis. She did a great job with our division Insight and was a fantastic sales manager. And she was my heir apparent to the president position at iHeart Media. And by the way, I noticed that ad that it showed up in the program tonight. I wonder who put that there. All right, Jeffrey Smolian, who I knew Jeff before, when his radio station, Emmis Media, Emmis Communications, was the third highest billing radio group in the United States for a while. Mostly because they owned, Emmis owned radio stations in some of the biggest markets. I had the privilege of working with Jeff for 36 years. And my boss of 10 of those years, my boss and friend, Patrick Walsh, and his wife, Jackie, unbelievably flew from the UK to Istanbul to Chicago to St. Louis to be here tonight. A hand for Pat. Pat was a fantastic boss, taught me a lot, especially on the financial side. And under Pat's tutelage, we took Emmis Radio to the #1 position financially in St. Louis before we sold it. Who else do I want to thank? Don Hicks. Don Hicks is our former president. I came on the board under Don Hicks' tutelage. Don is a fantastic guy, and he professionalized our organization and set the stage for what we have today, which is, I would say, this might be the best broadcast organization in the United States. We are well known in Washington, and I am not exaggerating, because like John Rooney said, we go to Washington every year, and we're in touch with our legislators, and believe me, we're not the only ones in touch with them. All the organizations, Spotify, AT&T, Verizon, Google, they all have lobbyists. If it weren't for the MBA and the team here, and many of you have gone on these trips with me, and the NAB in Washington, who would speak for us? We'd be dead in the water, because they would take everything that we do, that we give to the public for free, and they would put it on subscription, and we'd be out of business. So I think a hand for the MBA and the people in this room who have helped with our legislators, a hand for all of them, please. Mark Gordon was the immediate past president. He picked up where Don Hicks left off and kept this organization rolling to where it is today, and Chad was able to pick up the ball and keep it moving forward. Let's see. There are so many people. One of the reasons, Brian, how long am I? 4, 5 minutes? One of the reasons I'm up here is because when I hired disc jockeys, and I hired many of them, I looked at part of my job was to be a backstop for them, because we ask these. I mean, when I took over these stations, it was the wild, wild west of radio. Everything that's on podcast today was on free over-the-air radio a few years ago. We're a little risk averse these days, but in the 80s and the 90s, the jocks did crazy things, and my job was to defend them. And the reason that I'm known in St. Louis is because I negotiated several contracts through the press. In fact, I had a circumstance where I had a jock who I had to suspend, and he did a countdown every day. And I had 3 reporters from the press call me every single day for an update. So my name got known, synonymous with crazy rock and roll DJs. J.C. Corcoran among them. Woody, who you probably don't know here, but he's one of the top jocks in Los Angeles right now. David Glover, who is still on Odyssey. Steve and DC, who got me in lots of trouble, and I mean big trouble. Lost tons of money because of how they indiscriminately reported on our advertisers' indiscretions. And again, when we have a drink, I'll describe that to you. But thank you very much, everybody. I could go on and on about stories in this business, but the reason I'm here before you is I feel like I represent all of us and all the things that we do every day in broadcast, all the good we do in our communities. I'm representing you, and thank you very much for putting me in the Hall of Fame. I can't believe it. Thank you.